Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm joined by Lukas.
Yo!
And Lauren from Team MBL. We're going to be listening to the demos that you sent to us on our Discord servers. There's a link to both of our Discords in the description of this video if you haven't already joined. But for now, let's just dive in and listen to as many of these demos as possible.
Let's do it.
Right away.
All right.
I'm really impressed with a lot of that.
Yeah, this is really cool.
I like that it's all cohesive to one genre or style, but there's a lot of change and diversity through the track, which I like. I love how well mixed it is. Like the percussion, especially, it's very
tight.
Punchy, and the track has a lot of focus in it in terms of like you know what the bass is doing, you know what the drums are doing, but there's also a lot of width. So I mean, as far as a demo is concerned. Very good. What would you change?
Definitely something that a lot of artists would support. So I don't know if you've sent it out yet for supports. I see that you have like the record label name on it already, I think, in the title. So yeah, it's maybe you've already sent it out, but I think it'll get a lot of supports, a lot of plays because it's very clubby. It's something that would bring a lot of energy to the dance floor. I do think, however, on your next track, maybe this one's already done, but on your next track, make the beginning of your first break a little bit more catching because your second break is really nice. Like you have a vocal on there, it's something that you're like immediately like, this is a cool vibe. But on the first break, you have a cool like emotional atmosphere, but there's not like a vocal or anything.
The vocal hooked me in and made me want to keep listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's just so much more interesting than just a lead.
So just make sure that as soon as they press play, that it's right when you're gonna grab their attention and get them hooked. But I like it a lot.
Perfect.
Yeah, good track. Soothe.
It already sounds like it's gonna be smooth. I love it. I could listen to that all day.
Yeah, it's really relaxing. It goes really well with the title, obviously. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the vocal, especially in the beginning, it's so far in the back. So I think you should bring it up maybe 2 dB, something like that. Like just bring it up a little bit. I even think you might want to bring it out a little bit in the drop, the hook part of it, just a little bit more too, but yeah.
I love the way that the track doesn't rush itself either.
Yeah.
It feels like the right amount of time before the bass and the kick and all that stuff sort of happens in the chorus. However, only from a mixing perspective, I feel that there elements of it could be brightened up a bit. So not to make them harsh, but what I have here is the tonal balance control, which I use loads in mixing. A lot of you have seen this before. I'll put it up here so you can see it. And at lots of times in the song, you can see that it's maybe lacking a bit of high mid compared to, say, a typical modern profile. So it's really nice and smooth and bassy, but you could potentially bring out some more brightness, especially in the chorus here. You can hear that those snares are just trying to be a little bit brighter, maybe a little bit of a brighter reverb on them or something. But don't overdo it because the fact that it's so soothing and smooth to listen to is amazing.
Yeah, a lot of depth, which is really nice for this kind of vibe.
Is there anything you would change in terms of?
I mean, specifically arrangement-wise, I think it works really well. A lot of times I like to keep some of the energy in the second break or the second verse. But in this case, I kind of like, because it's such a soothing and chill track, I kind of like that it goes back. Yeah. And then again, like you said, it takes its time. You know, it's not rushed.
Wow.
It's like falling from grace. I know I'm blessed cause I found my way. I'm feeling fire and I'm ready to slay, nah nah.
Another really cool one so far.
I mean, what I would say is I liked it in the middle,
Yeah.
almost more than the start. I was wanting the kick and the bass to thump a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, it's clearly a bass driven song, but then somehow during the middle it felt very satisfying the way the whole track chugged,
Yeah.
but wasn't weighed down by the bass. It was very impressive. I mean, I wish I could produce like that. I can't do this genre, so well done.
Couple things from my end to make it even better, because every time I hear a song like this that's like close, or it is, I think you've already got some supports, but is close to that point where it's going to get signed, or maybe it's already signed. I always try to think about what you could do to make it even better, like to take it from like to like a home run kind of a thing. And in this case, I think the sound design could be a little bit more interesting on the drop. You have some cool effects and stuff like that, but your main lead, your main sound, I feel like it's not quite open enough. It sounds a little bit tame.
Can I take another listen to that?
Yeah.
One, around here. Feels amazing that it's all so locked in.
Yeah.
But maybe.
And then the other thing is it starts to get, in my opinion, a little bit repetitive on the second half of the drop. You do pick up the energy a bit. You bring in a little bit of percussion, but I think you can do even more. I think you can add maybe more percussion, more hype, maybe something else just to try to keep it going, or just have a shorter drop, move into the second break. One last tip I wanted to give, which is not particular to this song, but when you're sending these original mix or extended edits out for supports to DJs, it's important not to have too much melody in the first 8 bars of the track, because if you have too much melody in the first 8 bars of the track, it can be difficult for whoever's wants to play your track to mix it into like their radio show.
That's a good point.
If it's not like in key perfectly with their other track. So if you minimize the melody in the first 8 bars, they can just slip that track into any outro of another track, and it's going to be easier. Because
this is exactly why we have Lukas here. See, I never think of things like this, but it's such a good point. Because in a lot of pop songs, maybe just for Spotify, you would want a melody right away.
Right.
You need to get it catchy, stuck in their head.
Right.
Anything in the charts, but for the sake of a club and mixing them together, it's crucial.
Because when you're first starting, just to get someone to even want to take a chance on you is difficult. So if you make it difficult for them, like they're like, okay, I do want to support this person, but then if it's too difficult for them to find a spot to put it into their mix because it needs to be perfectly in key, at the end of the day, what are they going to do? They're probably going to be like, you know what, it's okay, I'll move on.
50 years are to come and go. The world is moving fast, but my mind is slow, and the skies turn black, and I can't seem to feel it anymore.
What I would say, really nice song, just from any perspective. As for mixing, because that's what I can really comment on, the guitars are really well mixed. It's such a pure sound. For all of those wonderful harmonies and doubles, I would probably spread them out even wider. I think they were sort of very focused in the middle, which gives it a very cohesive, glued sound. But I think in these sections here,
so have faith in the world that you know.
It sounds quite centered, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it could be more exciting.
I feel like that is helpful even in like EDM style stuff. You really do want to texture and layer your sounds, whatever your sound is. So in this case, it's the guitar, because you have this full sound spectrum that you can play with in the headphones. So if they all sound too tight and glued together, it kind of just sounds like one big sound instead of that textured, layered sound.
And what I like as well is that if you've got harmonies and doubles and triples that work when you layer them all together, they will always sound good when you spread them. Often people spread harmonies because they're not quite good enough, or they're a bit too loose, and spreading them helps with that because they don't have to glue in. So the fact that they sound so good when they're all together means they would just sound amazing if they were spread. But overall, that was a real pleasure to listen to.
I like the voice a lot too. I actually wouldn't mind hearing the voice be a little bit louder.
Yeah.
I think it's really nice.
In the morning light, you can't remember. You're coming alive. Life's too short, remember.
I felt like almost when this vocal built
Yeah.
up, I wanted the drop right there almost.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a old school type of track where it does take a while. Like if you see it's 6 minutes, so I think it's done on purpose that it's going to take a while to get to the different sections.
It keeps building up.
Yeah, it's for the kind of like I don't know if you ever listened to like old school like Deadmau5, but it was like 7-minute tracks where you would just if you showed it to someone that wasn't interested in house music, they would be like, okay, but you're like, no, this is part of it. Like wait for it.
Yeah.
Like it's part of the ride.
Wait for the
so
drop.
in that way, I think it does well. But if you wanted to make like a quicker radio edit, I think that could be really cool, like a 3-minute version. Deadmau5 did the same thing back when he had some of his songs that were radio versions. Because like in the beginning, it does take a while for that bass to come in, and it takes a while for that depth to come in. And I know maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of the experience. But yeah, I would like to hear a shorter radio edit of this.
If you make a shorter radio edit, which I hope you do, the intro, to be honest, I would literally just have it be like a bar of those vocal chops. Here, they just go
it takes
back,
a while.
kick in.
Yep.
Do that, filter it down with a cutoff filter, high pass, filter it away and straight in. At the start, I just pulled up tonal balance because I thought it was lacking a lot of bass in the kicks. The bass all arrived, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe just a tiny bit more at the start. I like that second drop even more than the first one.
Yeah.
It felt a lot more full. The kick and the bass, just everything just felt better. I would almost pull that in sooner. But I like that it takes a while to evolve.
Yeah.
I felt at the start, at least in the first minute or so, the drums could have been a bit more punchy. The kick and the snare really could have cut through a bit more. But as it evolves, it just gets better and better.
Yeah, I think there's so many cool parts to this track, but I'm going to come at it from like a strictly like arrangement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it just, the energy level, like if you played this live at a show, I don't know if that's your goal, if you want to play it live or what, but the energy level is just too sporadic. You get people energized and you take it away. You get them energized, you take it away. And your goal kind of is to continue to build that energy into the drop, and the drop is like the climax, right? It's like the payoff point. And then you want to keep a little bit of that energy from the drop on the second break so that you can kind of like keep people interested, and then an even bigger payoff on that second drop. You're kind of like, yeah, that's like the best way to do it. So in this case, you have like a situation like after the first drop, you kind of like have this lull point from starting right here, and then you bring in this really cool part. I would love to hear that part sooner. Like maybe you take like a 2-bar break after the first drop and then you just go into that, or maybe you can go straight into it somehow.
So I see that this is the extended mix, because initially I was thinking, where's the vocal?
Yeah.
But of course, the vocal comes in the second half.
I think this whole thing though, well, first off, really like the track, but this whole thing of having your vocal on the second half of tracks, I think is a little bit old school, and it might be a little bit of a missed opportunity because of what we were saying before, which is that you want to have your most catchy part of the song sooner, so that if the label listens to it, or the person who wants to support it listens to it, they're immediately hooked, because they're not going to wait and listen to the whole song.
Truly, all I was thinking through the first half was, this is super professional, really good, mixing's great, energy's great, but I wish it had a vocal. and I was thinking, it's a shame they don't have a vocalist, because if they had a vocalist, this track would be 100% ready.
Yeah.
And then when it came, I was like, oh, stupid, of course it does.
Yeah.
I would probably get them hooked sooner, as Lukas says. However, there's also a few, sometimes in the mix or in the production, there's some, sounds which have a lot of reverb on them to kind of create space. I would experiment with subtly taking things away and letting those really swell a little bit more just to create a bit more room. I felt like the mix could have even more movement in the top end, because the movement in the low end of the mix is exceptional. The way the bass and the kick interact, don't change that. The top end movement could be a little bit more swirly, a bit wide. I'm not sure.
It's part of the reason.
You've got to experiment.
You're exactly right. The lead, especially on the drop, needs to be bigger, fatter, crispier. If you don't have a bunch of things like background chords and multiple things going on, the listener or a vocal listener is just 100% focusing on that one melody that you have. So you really have to take advantage of that if you don't want them to get bored, and if you want to make them get whoa, this guy's amazing. So just really try to make that melody come alive more with the automation, with the cutoff, bring it out. But yeah, I definitely really like the vibe of this track.
By the atmosphere. Just right away, I'd say the kick and the click, I feel they could just be pushed a lot more. Potentially even a side chain on the kick and the track so that the kick feels bigger without blowing out the low end too much.
The vibe, if you really want the vibe to come alive with this track, you got to have a lot of bass. It's got to have that big bass and little snap.
Yeah. Try doing 2 clicks. Spread them a bit wider, a bit of a Hass delay, so that maybe one click is a few milliseconds before the other. It can create this stereo width that sounds amazing. Let's keep listening.
Yeah.
Good. I like the filtering. Ear candy's great. The percussion here is much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the fill. You could probably just make it even more in your face a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and the melody right now, I know you're bringing in more layers on this next part, but in the beginning, the melody, it just sounds kind of too basic, the sound of it, and it's really kind of wide, and it just doesn't sound very textured, but you bring in a vocal kind of sound in the second half, so it does get better, but just some things to look for. And I still would really like to hear that kick be a big 808 kick. So right away, I mean, maybe it's just that you don't really use this profile, but there's no profile picture and no picture for the track, so we know you're looking for feedback, but if you were sending this to a label, it would just seem like it's not finished. You know what I mean?
They might not even believe it's your track.
Right.
If you're not going to own it with a face or a brand. But let's get into the track
let's
and
check it out.
deal with that.
Yeah.
I'll approach the mix first.
And then
you can do the arrangement.
Yeah.
Just right away, it needs to just be bolder, especially at the start, more bass. I'd say try to get a nice, good foundation between the kick and the bass to really drive the track. Because right now, it sounds like there's some stuff happening and the melody's sort of all on its own, trying to hold the track together. And the melody's a fairly simple sound, and it's quite a simple melody, so it's trying to do a lot of work, the melody on its own.
It just seems, I was going to say, the idea is there. It just seems like bare bones at the moment. It just sounds like the most basic, just one melody sound, not much frequency going on with the different, bass, different stuff. Yeah. It seems like you didn't really, you're not at a point where you brought in a vocal or tried to change up the melody. The melody loops the whole time from the break to the build up to the drop. I'm not sure about the second half yet, but it's just something to keep working on. Obviously, I think that's where you're at right now, is you just want to keep working on it. So I don't know if you have a Splice membership or where you get your sounds, but you need more sounds. So I would just start diving into it, try to find more things for your arsenal, start messing around with more stuff, and then just try to get more feedback. Try to get, do another version of this and try to see what people say the next time you show it.
What I would recommend, just as some actionable points right away, the same lead melody, just double or triple it, take it down in volume and just try 3 or 4 different sounds.
Yeah.
Just see how they push the volumes up and down, EQ them, see what happens, throw reverb on one, see if you can create more of a textured sound. That's what I think you mean by texture, have more layers, yeah? And then what can also help is if you're struggling to arrange a track, I just save a new version, so save as new version, back up the old one, and just totally mess it up. Change all your patterns, pull things in and out, push the volumes of things, take things away. Don't be afraid to completely mess it up, because this digital age we live in, nothing is committed to tape. quick disclaimer about this track. This is two people that are working together who met through the Discord and they're collaborating on a track. The girl, Wendy, Mel, she is singing into a headset microphone, gaming headset. So she can just barely whisper into it or it clips. Different.
Stumbling underground as I thought how to make a sound.
Really like it.
And it's a different sort of track.
Yeah,
It's definitely more of a journey through the whole song. And I think the fact that the vocals were just into a cheap headset is quite impressive to me. And I feel that, you know, we should get them hooked up with a mic, which I can sort out, I promise. I'll send you a mic.
Whether it's for like a video game, cinematic thing, a YouTube trailer, some kind of, there's so many options for this track.
But that's one of the beautiful things about these sorts of collaborations, is you have a young producer in France, I believe, and this girl in Germany are working on a track through the internet, and I think that says something about like our Discord communities and how how they help people connect. That's all for this part of the video, but please go across to part 2 on the Team MBL YouTube. I will link that at the very top of the description box, and I'll link it in a card right here so you can't miss it. We're going to do exactly the same thing and listen to more demos from both communities. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you very much for joining me, Lucas.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to subscribe to In The Mix's channel.
And thank you very much, Lauren, for just sitting there patiently.
No problem.
Bye for now, guys. Have a great week.
Let's go check out some more demos.
See you in the next one.